before the meeting. It was really good, the communication. There was a WhatsApp group. People were added to it. There was a lot of communication. Everything was very clearly stated, which was great. And I really appreciate that. There was a lot of preparation in advance, especially from our TMOD. If there's one thing that I would state is that because of the many messages, the agenda and the links and date and time and poster of the meeting would get lost. So before I was actually attending this meeting, I was kind of looking for where is the link, where is the poster. I kind of found it a bit difficult to find. So I would suggest putting the link in the group info, or maybe the meeting number and the meeting password in the group info of the WhatsApp group so that it's very easy to find. In terms of the meeting itself, everyone seemed to come on time, which is great. I see many people are wearing red, which is also a good thing. Despite everyone being on time, we started on time actually, but I feel that everyone took a bit of time, and that seemed to have a trickle effect, which meant that we are a little over time. However, I think we have sort of caught it up a bit. So as far as our acting sergeant at arms, Toastmaster Anita, of course, you did a great job. I feel like WebEx is your forte. You gave some very good online rules, some of which I've actually written down to use in our meeting. And then, of course, you handed over to the president, who shared a lovely story about gratitude, and then also introduced the guests. If there's one thing I would suggest, it's that obviously in Toastmasters we share a presentation. However, that detracts from the speaker, at least on the WebEx platform, because the presentation on a laptop takes precedence over the speaker. And if you're on a phone, like our president was, you won't see the presentation at all. And it's just a bit distracting. So maybe think about which one is more important to showcase. Is it the speaker or is it the presentation? That depends on the context. So whatever you feel like. And as for the president, I believe he was using a phone. I think all role players should at least try to, if they can, be on a laptop so that it's easier and that there are less technical difficulties and things with moving around, because it's very distracting and it obviously takes more time. Now, moving on to our TMOD, Toastmaster Rajalakshmi, I think you very sagaciously spoken. You were very well rehearsed, very organized, and I really appreciated how thorough and methodical your whole theme was. So I really, really appreciated that, and I think everyone really benefited from that. Wordmaster, very good word. I think it's a very relevant word, and it's a word that we can use in our everyday vocabulary. And I really appreciated the interactive session, the fill the blank session. I think that was very interesting, and it actually, I think, did a better job of helping us to understand the word rather than getting us to think of a sentence, because sometimes people use the word in the wrong way. So I think this was a very good way to get us to understand the word. However, there was a lot of time taken with this activity, especially since we were running overtime. I think it's either the president's or the Toastmaster of the day, someone's call to say, okay, look, we might have to cut off the activity because we are running overtime. However, very well done. Moving on to prepared speeches. First icebreaker speech, Toastmaster Siji, very well done. Very clear icebreaker. I think it really fulfilled the definition of an icebreaking speech. There were some audio issues. I think maybe when you were moving around a little, you need to make sure that your audio is correct, especially if you're a speaker. So please ensure that your audio is fine, and that goes for everyone as well. Second speaker, Toastmaster Shobha. Again, very well done. You reacted very well to all the issues that were happening, and it was very entertaining to watch. And I think it's a particularly good speech to do online when there are so many distractions that are happening. As for the evaluations for our speakers, Toastmaster Prasad, detailed evaluation, very nice. And I love the little rhyme at the end. It's very cute. And I think talk a little louder, because there were a lot of times where I couldn't hear you. So that's one thing for you. And Toastmaster Anita, again, very detailed analysis of Shobha's evaluation, very nice breakdown. So moving on to our table topics, Toastmaster Shaina, very nice and simple topics, as you said. They were very easy to understand, very digestible. And I think in terms of your evaluation, so the purpose of your evaluation, your session, was to have short affirming statements, which I think you did very well. You affirmed all the speakers after they spoke, and you also added a little anecdote of how what the message of this table topic speaker, how that affected you in your life. So I think that was a very nice touch. It kind of created a dialogue or an active conversation almost between you and the table topic speaker. So I think that was a very nice effect. There are two things that I would like to suggest. As a table topics master, you should say the topic twice. So you say Toastmaster X, the topic is, and then repeat the topic, and then say Toastmaster, and then hand over to them. And there is no explanation of the table topic, even if the speaker asks for it. That is just how it is, and the speaker should just absorb and say what they have understood from the topic. That's one thing I would suggest. And another thing is you tended to repeat the same words, so it was a wonderful speech. I heard you say that a few times. So I would suggest, maybe increasing your vocabulary. It was a passionate speech. It was an interesting speech. It was delightful. It was unique. Use some different words. Try and, improve your English that way. That's a very good way. Oh, even sagacious. Use the word of the day. It's a very good example to use. Moving on to our trivia master. I liked your questions. They were very, very fun, and it was really nice to have some self-reflection as well. And it was very interactive. And I liked how you used the chat feature. Again, with PowerPoints, maybe, think if you are able to avoid technical glitches, maybe that would be good. So I think just testing it out before. And I think it's good. I mean, obviously, we're all learning still this online platform, so no problem. The R counter and the grammarian were two separate people, which I liked because that's how it is supposed to be in Toastmasters, actually. But every meeting that I've gone to, actually, it's always together. So that was interesting. The word master, it's in the agenda, but the word master herself didn't seem to understand what the word master report is. So I think either, remove it because the grammarian seems to have done it anyway. So either don't put it in the agenda next time or make sure that the grammarian doesn't do the word master report. And an additional role that I would like to appreciate is the host, of course, the host was actually pretty smooth. I think the polls were done very well, and everything. I noticed that all the videos were recorded as well, which is nice. And again, presentations were done well and on time. There's one thing I would recommend is to make sure that everyone is muted at the appropriate times because there was a bit of feedback at certain times. Overall, very well done. I think you guys have really grasped the online meeting concept very well, especially I think with Toastmaster Anita, you've got a very good teacher there. So yeah, well done. And thank you very much for inviting me and all the best for your next few meetings.
Thank you, Toastmaster Noor. It was such a pleasure to